So as we're quietly sitting here, can tune into our breath, put our attention on our breathing. And notice if you have this sense of mindfulness established. Or allow that phrase to encourage kind of natural settling of attention on your meditation objects. Without stress, without bearing down, without any kind of goal to get anything, but just to be present, aware. We received a question about this morning's instructions about noticing that there is what we're paying attention to, mindfulness of our breathing, for example. And then there's that which is observing. And I don't really think about what is that's observing, but I can recognize that whatever is being observed, maybe it's feeling or mental state or the breath, the body, or pain in the body, or pleasant feeling, that whatever it is, the observer, that which is seeing it or experiencing it, isn't caught up in it. So there is this, I mentioned this morning, I called it a space between. So I know there's that which is seen and that which is seeing, or that which is known and that which is the knowing, or the knower. But it's not a being, right? It's just a stance from which you observe. The mindfulness itself, mindful of whatever our attention is on. Now, the benefit of seeing it in this way is that we have a context or a position from which to be, what I want to say is safe from, or neutral to that which we're observing. One story that Ajahn Sumedho has told in one way or another over the years was when one of the nuns came to him and said that everything seemed dark. No matter what she was doing, just all seemed dark. And his question was, is that which is seeing the dark, dark? It might sound like a koan or some kind of construct that's being created by a thinking mind, but actually no, it's actually something we can feel, or it's something we know directly in ourselves. So right now, if we turn our attention to our body, the top of our head, we might be aware of some feeling there, or coming down a little bit, aware of the eyes and maybe some tightness or some stress. We know that. We see it from a position that's not feeling the tightness. It's just observing. And that position of the witness that's always available to us, it puts our felt experience, our observed experience into a kind of context that gives us some perspective on it. And we can notice the wisdom arising also there, Sambojjhaṅga, that can evaluate this experience. And we can allow our attention to come down the rest of the face, the head, the neck, the shoulders. You can invite that area to relax. Just notice how it feels. Observe with mindfulness our back. Noticing any discomfort, maybe making a small adjustment to our posture or not. Feeling the chest and the belly. Noticing how it feels there with all that food to digest. Hopefully peaceful and happy, calm. And onto our seat, how we're feeling, sitting, the way we're sitting. If there's any stress in the back or the belly, we can invite that area to relax. Bringing our attention to our legs, thighs and knees. Noticing whether the knees are all right in the position they're in. If there's any stress on them. The lower legs and the feet. Feeling the the mat or the chair, or whatever we're sitting on, feeling solid. So we notice the way the body feels, and then can make in that assessment, in that perception, we can see if there's any change that would be helpful, either a little movement, or just inviting some relaxation. So this is the way the Buddha encouraged us to work with any aspect of our awareness, whether we're observing the body or our feelings, mental states, thoughts. First, being just aware and present and accepting of this current situation in the present moment. And then with wisdom, bringing up maybe some energy to make a change. So we can also do this with our mental states. Like right now, maybe there's some drowsiness. It's very common after the meal. And we can invite some energy to arise. But first we notice the drowsiness, how it feels, that it's okay for things to be the way they are. Instead of evoking aversion about it, or just noticing if that arises, it's fine. Again, being accepting of the way it is. If our habit is to be disappointed or upset with ourselves when the mind isn't in the state we want it to be in, then we can observe that and accept that. And a lot of times that's enough, just to observe and accept that that's what's happening in the moment, for it to fade away. It's more effective, I find, than trying to push against it. So we can work this way with whatever hindrance. If a hindrance arises, or you notice there's some wanting, or there's some wanting to get rid of, some drowsiness or low energy, or there's restlessness, agitation, excitement, or a wavering back and forth. Whatever it is, if it's not very strong, I don't bother with it. I just go on to whatever the meditation object it is that I'm interested in. And most of the time, getting deeply into the meditation, not in some just fortuitous experience, but just by being present, really present, observing. Then whatever that minor hindrance is, it disappears, vanishes. But when a much more prominent bigger, more heavier, whatever you want to call it, a time when it's strong, then we may have to address it directly. Examining what might be the root cause of it or that which provokes it, evokes it, encourages it. So right now, just notice how's your mind doing? Being aware of the mind, the state of the mind, is just that simple. There's the awareness and the mind. And we can know that state of the mind. We can know if it's wholesome or unwholesome. And that observer, that witness position, that's neutral. It's not caught up in any of it. And right now, that's enough to know, to see. And sometimes when we have this stronger kind of hindrance, we try various things and it's not really helping. Then we may need to put more energy into it. Continue to work with it. Or we may need to change our approach. So with the hindrance of drowsiness, for example, dullness of the mind, we can try to bring in more energy. We can try the techniques the Buddha listed, like opening the eyes, looking up to the ceiling or to the sky. I find it really helpful sometimes to look up in the trees. We can just check on the situation with the body and mind. Is it just tired? Or is there boredom? A lack of energy for some other reason? Maybe something we want to avoid. Sometimes we hear the advice that it's important to be happier. If you're happy, you won't be dull and drowsy. Today, I feel like whatever tiredness or drowsiness there is for me, it's just indication of a need for some rest. But what about when the hindrance is restlessness? It's the other side of the coin. and we need to calm the energy down. Help the body and mind relax. Is that the result of boredom or worry? Or fear? See if there's a way to understand the root cause, if there is one. Or is it a habit that we seem to slip into when there's nothing else happening? Sometimes I think the restlessness is just the sort of aftershocks of being so stimulated by our environment, by our media, by all the things that we have responsibilities for. Instead of going into dullness and drowsiness, we go into restlessness instead, looking for more stimulation because that's how our system is tuned at that time. And gradually we can encourage the body and mind to relax more and enjoy small things. The sound of the birds or the water, the feeling of the sun on your face. It's good to have patience and give the system time to adjust to this new pace of life on retreat. And of course there's desire, strong desire, like lust that gets evoked. It's probably the strongest one most of us experience. The easiest approach is the unbeautiful. If we want something, we only see the positive sides of it, or it's a more physical, instinctual reaction. But we also have a physical, instinctual reaction to the unbeautiful. That which is just beneath the skin. Or if desires aren't quite that intense, but still the wanting is there, wanting some kind of pleasant experience. Maybe there's a pleasant spiritual experience that will ease the mind, make it happy. Happy in a good way, not in a way that wants to continue to addictively indulge. And then there is, of course, the technique of restraint and using mindfulness to observe what happens in the mind when we don't get what we want. Can we stay present with that feeling until it's been waited out and comes to the end of its cycle? And aversion. Can do a similar approach with aversion, with anger, with resentment, being provoked, being present with it. This is one of the places where we can get a really clear view of the distinction between the observer and what is observed. We might feel like the whole body and mind is filled with anger. But when we look more closely, we can see that the observer is not touched, not engulfed. Solid, clear, present. And the restraint, of course, we've got the age-old methods of counting to 10 or walking away, engaging in some kind of inconsequential physical activity, something that's not going to harm anyone, including yourself. Just get some of the energy out. But of course, most of the time our aversion is much more subtle than that. But it's still there. Maybe it finds its expression in judgmental thoughts, criticism of others or of ourselves. Lots of ideas of how things should be changed. And then we can just see if there's a possibility of practicing being peaceful and calm, allowing the mind to be the way it is, but observing it with wisdom, and inviting that patience with this feeling until it disappears on its own. And then there's doubt. Letting go. Not so easy. But forming a question, a clear question, rather than just the agitation in the mind about whether or not things are like this or like that, should be like this or like that, confusion. Seeing if there's a question that can be articulated, and let that question reside in the mind as a question for the intuition to answer, or maybe to put on a note to us. And being present and aware with the energy of doubt. Questioning examining, exploring, investigating. These are the ways to overcome doubt. You can seek an answer from an authority, but oftentimes the best answers come from deep within. They really resolve that doubting energy. Any of these hindrances can pop up regardless of how many years we've been practicing. And there's some skill in knowing when to directly address them and when to just leave them aside and pursue our meditation objects. Really being present with that, developing some peace and calm in the system, some happiness through that mindfulness, through that presence. So all of this that I've been describing around the hindrances and how to be with them with mindfulness and looking at their causes, this could all be considered Dhammavicaya, investigation. It's the second factor of the factors of spiritual awakening. To investigate, to maybe apply a method, and in doing so, we bring up more energy. Sometimes Dhamma investigation really brings up a lot of faith. Another kind of energy. And from that point, it's quite natural to feel some joy, some pamojja, joy, well-being. If we've outweighted a hindrance or we've seen its root and it disappears, or we're just present with it and accepting in a way that we can become more calm, and we're very likely to feel that sense of well-being. Happiness. And as we stay present with the breath or whatever the object is, we can deepen that happiness or uplift that happiness to piti, joy or rapture. Doesn't have to be so strong, doesn't have to be so intense or extreme. But you notice it's spiritual energy. It has a vibrancy to it. We might feel it in one particular area of the body, or it might spread through the whole system. It might just feel like a mental feeling, or you might have some kind of physical sensation that comes along with it. As we develop PT, it can change. How we experience it can change. And how we experience it isn't so important, but lifting up the heart, that is important. And when PT starts to settle down more, it goes into passaddhi, tranquility, where the body is tranquil and the mind becomes tranquil. And then there can be a very natural transition to samadhi, collectedness of mind, stillness. The stillness flowing. The mindfulness is still bright and present. Observing the state of the mind. And the mindfulness will be aware of a shift from samadhi to equanimity, an evenness of mind that is maintained naturally regardless of whatever meets it. Steady, calm, Instead of ringing a bell, I just want to let you know that you're free if you wish to go into walking meditation or movement or stay where you are, depending on what's best for you.